Good day, everyone. Welcome to Verbose Perspectives. I am James Hicks. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Robert Lee. But
Hey, James.
forget about us. Hey, forget about us. It's the guy in the middle, right? That's who we're here to talk about. We're cool too, but we've got Mr. Paul Weber online with us, folks. Paul is a professional in the radio industry for almost 30 years. Doesn't look like it, right? I've got more salt in my beer than he has, but he's served in various roles behind the microphone and sales and marketing, things of that nature. He's also worked as a business development manager in various service industries. Now he spends his time running Love Audio production, creating marketing messages, video narration, and voiceover work. We're going to talk a little bit about all of those aspects, talk a little bit about the why of Paul and why of Love Audio production. But first and foremost, Paul, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
We have a slight audio delay. I guess it's because we're going East Coast U.S., West Coast U.S. to across the pond right now. So we are truly multinational right now, but that's all good. So Verbose Perspectives is definitely growing from a geographic reach perspective.
And I thought he was going for like the delay for that dramatic effect before he answered.
It's the awkward pause, right? It's the awkward pause.
Like that.
It's interesting because you asked me about why Love Audio production, and that kind of came about purely by accident. I changed from the name of the company used to be VoiceBox Creative, and which was fine, and it kind of did what it said on the tin. As a voiceover artist, you have to come up with a word and a phrase that people relate to. And I was talking to my landlord at the place I was renting at the time, and he was a marketing executive, and I said to him, I'm thinking of changing the name, but I'm not quite sure which direction to go. He said, well, just think about what you do, and what he said to me, he said, what is it you do? And I said, well, audio production. Okay, well, there's a starting point. He says, and how do you feel about it? I said, well, I love it. He said, well, there you are. There's your name, Love Audio. And that's exactly how it started. And that was 25 years ago, because I was kind of running that in the background as well as doing the radio industry, which is kind of similar, and both things gelled very well with the voiceovers and doing stuff for commercials and things like that. And so that's how it began. And most recently, after being made redundant last July, I'm now running it full time. So doing voiceovers, narration, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I love that. I love the simplicity, right, too, of what you named your company. What you do, what you love, and that's the name, and that's resonated, as you say, for these number of years. I'm gonna let Robert talk, but I want to really dive into some of the components of what you do, and again, the why and the how that you do it. Obviously, being an audio aficionado, I'm gonna use that word. That's a big word. I don't know. I don't normally use big words like that on this show, but I want to talk about kind of behind the scenes of you getting that crystal clear audio, you getting the resonance and the in the Rodecaster Pro world, the deep bottom, right? Getting that aspect out of the messages that you produce, and for folks that are now within the last 12, 14 months or so being locked down, now starting to look at live streaming and audio streaming types of capabilities and opportunities, how they can kind of level up their environment. Because I've always said, regardless of anything else out there, the audio is probably the most important. Video can be crappy, but you got to sound right. So.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that we were taught. I only started live streaming. Got to be honest with you, James and Robert. I only started live streaming in March, April of 2020. That's really the first time I started doing it. And it was after taking part in a program called Live Streaming Pros, and they did a free 30-day trial of going live every day in April. There's another one coming up this year, and I'm going to partake in that as well because I found it really useful. But going back to your question just now about delving a little bit deeper into the audio side of things and why. You mentioned the Rodecaster Pro. I don't have any of that stuff. I've got a 32-channel digital mixing desk right in front of me underneath the camera here, made by PreSonus. and they also make the software that I use as a DAW. Now, DAW stands for Digital Audio Workstation. Okay? Things like if you're an Apple user, you can use GarageBand. That's a very good platform to use as a DAW. Adobe Premiere Pro is another one that you can use. But I use PreSonus Studio One version 5, and it's the Pro version that I use of that particular software. And the two things marry really well together. So I can control a lot of the aspects of my DAW on the screen from the desk. So I can move a fader on the desk, and it'll control the stuff in the DAW. Once I've got it in that particular mode. It's really good. But that's my audio interface. That's where I plug everything in. So the microphone goes into that. My speakers are coming out the back of that. My headphones, I'm listening to you guys, but I'm listening to the overall sound of the desk as well. I've got a slight bit of compression on the microphone because you mentioned about how to make that kind of bottom end sound good. I've got some compression on there. The bottom end is rolled off, and that's a pro tip that I would give you guys as well, is that whenever you're recording or broadcasting or whatever it might be, just look at the bottom end and get a spectrum analyzer, a frequency analyzer on your software if you can, and it shows where those notes are coming from. And the bass notes that you create from your resonance, from your chest, and from your diaphragm make a very, very loud sound as regards the whole graphic equalizer, if you like. So the bottom end is what you want to kind of roll off a little bit, so it's not quite so bassy. People love that kind of radio sound and that radio voice. So when you get closer, you really get that kind of deep resonant sound. And that's great if you're doing a close-up voiceover piece. But if you're doing a piece to camera and you want that energy and you want to be bright and sparkly, then roll off that bottom end, because that's the thing that'll rumble. It'll give you rumble. It'll also make your speakers feedback. If you've got the speakers on, we shouldn't have anyway. You should have headphones in. But, and it's a pro tip, and it helps you to create more headroom in your mix, if you're mixing music, that is, and audio generally, if you roll off the bottom end of your bass notes, that is. Yeah, so whether it's guitar, keyboards, voice, anything like that, and you've got some bottom end rumble going on, get it rolled off. Anything between, kind of 400 hertz downwards, you don't need that stuff, so get rid of it.
Well, hold on. Let me grab a pen because I'm taking notes down. Yeah, Robert, I'm going to defer to you now because I'm about to roll my bottom end down.
All right,
and like Paul,
well, that's a rich way to put it. Well, I mean,
first of all, don't use that as the clip, right, for like Instagram, the repurpose. James is rolling off his bottom end. Please don't do that. That would just not be a good look for me.
Well, I was just gonna go with like the behind the scenes shot we just did of the three of us. So there wouldn't be any audio, so you're good there. But I mean, the neat thing this year, James, is like Paul and I first virtually met doing the same workshop that he spoke of from last year. So, I mean, for me, it was just a matter of just making sure that the audio works, which I've had the pleasure to be able to have Paul's guidance as to make sure that I can get sound coming out when I'm doing the live streaming. So, but for me, what I'm curious, Paul, is that since you have like a great body of work in the audio, that when was the interest of to do from an audio platform to doing live streaming, where you had to integrate the video, and because you did provide us a great illustration of your audio setup, that I mean, did you find that there was much work to be done to transition from a pure audio production to now audio and video?
Yeah, there was. It was a pretty steep learning curve because I'd never done live streaming before, and I didn't have a camera, I didn't have anything like that. I just had my phone, and of course that's what you're supposed to use when you first start. If you've got your phone, there's no excuse, just go live, right? Mm-hmm. So it was about getting the audio right. I was only using OBS to start with, and OBS is notorious for throwing you a curveball when it comes to messing up your audio. So I had awful problems with that initially, trying to get that balance of the sound that I was producing versus the sound that I wanted to come back to me from, let's say, a guest on an interview like this, for instance. And I could not figure it out for weeks and weeks. And it's only recently, by the way, that I've discovered a thing called Mix Minus. And you'd think that being in the industry, I'd know all about that. I mean, I'd heard about it, but I didn't know what it did until recently. So what I'm sending to you guys is Mix Minus. So I can hear what you guys are saying, but you guys can't hear yourself coming back. So therefore, that eliminates that audio feedback, if you will, that kind of, doubling up of your sound when you speak. So Mix Minus is a great tool to use on any mixing hardware that you've got. And
Definitely.
Small mixers have got that kind of thing. Audio interfaces have got it as well. I know the Rodecaster Pro's probably got it as well, and things like that. So you can create fantastic audio and have audio coming back to you so you can hear your guest, but they don't hear themselves as that doubling up, that kind of echo that you get. So that's a real pro tip that I've discovered. As I say, only recently managed to sort that out. I did a live stream and I reset the whole desk, and it was chaos. Just pushed the button to reset it, like factory reset, and it lost all of my presets, and I had to go through the whole thing again. So that was frustrating, but we're back where we are, and it works fine. So it's cool.
Okay,
I love it. Let me ask you a question real quick, and I just want to interject because when things pop into my head, I'll forget them if I don't say it. My wife hates that. Talking audio, and again, I guess I want to kind of put it in the terms of folks that are within the content creation field, doing what we do. Condenser versus dynamic microphones, right? Again, we talk because we're talking at kind of another level. Yeah, you've got the PreSonus that you're using. I've got the RCP, and other folks. Not everyone has cloud lifters and Rodecaster Pro, things like that. Some of those advanced technologies. They're going to Micro Center and Best Buy, the main retail, Amazon, and finding condenser mics and dynamic mics at a reasonable price. Give us your thought and your take on those offerings and those products, and kind of some best tips for choosing those items.
Sure. Well, the one I'm using right now is a condenser mic. So this is powered by 48 volts, which comes directly off the mixing desk. Okay, so
you
it
got the
needs
phantom power.
Needs phantom power. What's called phantom power, yeah, and it's always 48 volts phantom power. Most audio interfaces and mixing desks have a 48 volt phantom power switch, and you've got to make sure that you only plug a condenser mic into those sockets. If you plug a dynamic mic into there, that you could cause damage beyond recognition. So yeah, don't do that. But as regards one versus the other, this will double up as a USB mic, because I've got an adapter which I plug into the bottom of the USB socket at the bottom of the mic,
Nice.
just underneath there. Okay, I've got an adapter that plugs into that, and then that plugs into the USB socket, USB 3, on my PC, okay, because I'm using a PC. So fors and against, I prefer the condenser side of things because it sounds better. If you have a USB mic, there are a number of them on the market, and I'm not au fait with all of the brands and the names, but I know that if you get one or two of them, they come with software anyway, which is great, because you need that level of control. If you're going to use a USB mic, you need that level of control in order to control the sound that you want to create. So this is quite it's quite a beefy sound. It's quite a radio kind of sound, as you know. It would be, wouldn't it? Because I'm, from that background, so it would be. But yeah, so fors and against, condenser mics is my favorite. However, if you need to use a USB mic, try and get one that comes with a software package with it, so you've got some element of control over it in your PC or your Mac. Yeah.
That's a really good point, right? Because again, someone will go and buy the $30, $40 microphone that they see, great brand, name recognition, whatever the case may be. It does the job, but if there's no means of adjusting noise gates, if there's no means of adjusting compression, if there's no way of actually shaping that sound, it's tough. Right, and then you start having the conversation USB versus XLR types of connections. So I guess I bring all that up while we have you as a subject matter expert on the line, just so folks take those things into consideration. A lot of times you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah,
consider what you're trying to do with the platforms. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. You're absolutely right, and you know, you get what you pay for. You're exactly right. This was 129 UK pounds, so roughly speaking, $150 perhaps. And you know, it came with a case. It came with a shock mount, which is this thing here, and it's got a series of elastic bands all the way around it on a zigzag form like that. And what that does is like a cradle, so it keeps the microphone away from the stand, so you don't get that vibration. It's what we call a shock mount, and you can see it's quite kind of springy, and that's because these are quite taut, these springs, and it cradles the microphone away from the microphone stand, which if I do that, you're going to hear that the spring of the microphone stand, right? But it keeps it away from that, so you don't get that sound. Even if you have to move this slightly, you're not going to get that sound too much, you know. So that's always the thing to try and find. Sometimes they come with the shock mount, but you can get fairly cheap shock mounts as well online that will go with your microphone. Another tip as well is try and get a windshield. This is a branded windshield with the Love Audio brand on it.
Yeah, show that a little bit. Well. Robert, zoom in on the Love Audio there. I mean, that's marketing all day.
How's that?
Yeah, nice.
I love it.
So, you know, I bought two of those. One for the mic. Behind these shelves, I've got a voiceover booth, which is where I do the majority of my voiceovers. I don't use this microphone. This is just a desk mic for my live streaming. So my voiceover booth microphone is made by Marshall, the guys that make the guitar amps.
Oh, okay.
And that's been my go-to mic for over 25 years. It's a workhorse. It's used every single day with regards to scripts that I get from clients. And it's a Marshall MXL 2001, I think, is the name of it. And again, that's a condenser mic. Uses 48 volts phantom power from a Behringer outboard gear preamp that I've got. A preamp is a preamplifier. So it's a little bit technical, but what it does is it molds the sound for you. And I happen to love this particular one because it's a valve amp. It's in the old days they used to use these kind of valves that glowed in the dark. They lit up, and the more they lit up, the harder they were working. They get warm, and it creates a very warm sound, you know, like that. Very warm kind of sound, very warm and
love that.
And
love it.
You know, fuzzy, not in a bad way, but you know, warm and cuddly sound to your mic.
That's old AM radio right there, buddy. Yeah, that's old
exactly.
AM radio.
AM radio, perfect description. Yeah.
I'm old.
So the outboard gear I've got, the Behringer valve amp, not a valve amp, a valve preamp, makes that warm sound. So I use that in conjunction with the Marshall microphone in the booth to do the majority of my voiceovers. Yeah.
Awesome.
Is this where you joke that this is a kind of an awkward pause right here?
No, we're waiting on you, sir.
Oh,
you are the man behind the production booth right now. So that was.
Well, I mean, mine's a little bit different than from the audio portion of it. It's just more on the live streaming program, because I know, like, on your channel there, Paul, you're doing some videos there that's a lot more community engagement, and I thought maybe like you might want to talk about some of the videos you have, like the Love Audio Cafe. I like how you get involved with guests and engagement right there.
Okay. Well, the Love Audio Cafe is, if we're talking about live streaming, the Love Audio Cafe is like a subdivision, if you like, from the Love Audio production side of things. So I tend to use that as a platform for doing my podcast. And initially what I would do is do a vlog, if you like. So I'd get a guest on and we chat about whatever it is that we're chatting about. And then I'd repurpose that for the podcast and, you know, chop out the video side of it and just have the audio uploaded as well, which is cool. And then I post that on my website. So I've only recently started that. I've got 3 up there so far. I've got 1 in production, which is the 4th one. It doesn't necessarily have to be about audio. You know, I've had guests on there that do talk about audio, but, you know, others that talk about their lifestyle and whatever they're doing at the time. So that's pretty cool. As regards the other videos on my YouTube channel, which I'm growing we're growing it steadily and organically, which is great. You know, there's no forced purchasing of followers and all that kind of stuff that you hear all sorts of stories about these days.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to grow it organically, which is the best way to do it. And one of the biggest tips I can give is just show up regularly. So I show up every Monday night at 8 p.m. UK time, and we talk about audio production for beginners, and that's purely what the channel's really about. So it could be, what does this fader do on the desk, or what does this so and so do in the DAW, the digital audio workstation, or like James was alluding to earlier on, which is the best microphone for live streaming? Well, either USB or XLR. This one happens to be XLR, but it doubles up as a USB mic if I get really stuck. So if the vMix software that I used to go live with let me down,
Right.
and I had to go live with a USB mic, that's perfect. I just plug that in, plug it into the USB socket, and we're ready to go. You've got to be adaptable in these times, because tech is sure as hell going to let you down, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, next to pre-production, which I'm a big advocate to let others know, is that it's always good to have a backup plan. So it's interesting how you mentioned it as that's a backup. For me, like if this, because I have like a Shure mic that I use as USB, but if this goes up, I have like a backup mic I just have in case I need to pull it out. And this is just a Rode video mic that I can just plug into like the 1/4 or 1/8. So that it's cool to hear others that have like different type of contingency plan.
And of course, I just sold
James,
I had an extra.
What do you use as a microphone? Sorry.
So I've gone all Rode.
Microphone.
Yeah, I've gone all Rode. So I've got the Rodecaster Pro as my interface, and I've got the Pod mic. They marry really well together, and I'm pushing the Pod mic into a cloud lifter as well. So I'm getting that additional resonance from that. I just sold. I had an MV7. I had a Shure MV7. Shure MV7. I just sold that. Literally just sold it 2 days ago. Great microphone, obviously. But I said, you know what? I want to be brand consistent. I don't know why. I have no stock in Rode, but it just works pretty good. Who knows? I may get another one day down the road. But yeah, that's what I'm using. And then for video, I'm using my Sony mirrorless with the 16 millimeter lens on it. So
very nice,
cool.
I'm a fan. What I've become a fan of, to be honest with you, and this is my latest obsession within the studio: lighting. Oh my God, I've spent more nickels and dimes on hue lights, on nano leafs. I don't have the nano leaf on right now, but that's been my whole thing lately. Just setting up that I've got the Elgato key lights as well up in front, doing the 3-point, but. That's been my latest obsession. So I got the physical gear. Now it's all about bringing in a little ambiance. I don't know. I'm keeping the economy going, right? In any kind of way I can. I'm keeping the economy going for sure.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think since this all began, 18 months ago and stuff like that, people have been reaching out to do more and more. Live streaming, recording live video, recording video, putting it out there, reaching out to their clients, and James and Robert, you'll have clients that you work with that are reaching out to you because you have knowledge of going live, and you're able to set them up with a production that they didn't have before, and a lot of people are trying to do it on their own as well, and they're buying stuff online, and no doubt the electronics industry sales have gone through the roof, because of the pandemic and everything else, and because everybody wants everything, and loads of stuff ran out, didn't it? A few months back I was hearing stories about stuff, like the Stream Deck and stuff like that from Elgato. This one here, I happen to have the 15-button one, and that controls my show on a Monday night. But I've heard that a lot of those are out of stock, and microphones and USB mixers and all that kind of tech gear that people want to go live with was just being depleted and no stocks. And no doubt the manufacturers are going, quick, we better start making some more stuff because we're going to sell out. So fair play to the industry, but hopefully everybody got what they needed to get.
Exactly, or at the very least, with that much time passed, that there's a lot more options, folks to either up their live streaming game, or for those that just enter, that there's more choices. So it's a pretty interesting time, and It just really boils down to just in terms of just finding the right setup for what type of production or what type of content you're putting out there.
Yeah. My ask of folks and my challenge also, is folks who have started maybe during this lockdown and pandemic time is that they don't stop now. Right now that the world is getting close to probably opening up within the next 8-10 months or whatever the case may be, and we can start going back. Don't stop doing this. If you started this as a passion, if you started this as a hobby, if you started this as an entrepreneur venture, really don't stop, because this marketing, look, again, here we are. We've got Boston, we've got California, we've got the UK online right now. We are multinational in terms of the reach right now, having this type of a conversation. And we probably wouldn't have had this, right, if we didn't just stop, right? If the world hadn't stopped, it was definitely bad for everything that happened. But if the world hadn't stopped, we wouldn't have probably had this opportunity to really reach out and start building these communities the way that we are. Yeah. So that's my challenge to, I got one finger pointing out and three fingers pointing back at me to everyone that's involved, to be honest with you.
I think that for me personally, the live streaming thing since April of last year has been therapy for me. I think if I hadn't have had that to fall back on, I'd have gone completely stir crazy and would not be in a good place right now. So for me personally, I enjoy going live every Monday night at 8 p.m. UK time. But, for some that aren't even started yet, they are absolutely petrified to press that go live button. And, there's no reason why they should be. And if I could give one just solid tip there, really, is you have an audience already, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube or whatever it might be, and you just need to say to them, look, and do a teaser like Robert does for the shows and stuff like that. Just say, look, I'm thinking of going live on this date at this time. I'd like you to join me. I don't know what the hell we're going to be talking about, but I'd just like you to join me. And just use it as a practice, Use it as a practice, and once you do more of that, then you're going to get good at it as a matter of course, because you're going to watch yourself back, and that's the worst thing for some people, is that they hate watching themselves back. But I thoroughly recommend that you do, because then you can pick out bits that you think you can do better next time, and you can improve. So every time you're a step closer to getting it improved, getting it better, and you'll become better each time. And make sure that people are aware of when you go live, and try and stick to that regime. If you're going to go live every third Tuesday in the month at 4:30. Make sure you go live every third Tuesday of the month at 4:30. Don't let them down, but signpost it well.
Yeah, I mean, it tees up the fact that once you get beyond the nerves of getting in front of the camera, is just how well you can present the content, engage the viewers, and hold their attention. And that's, I think, as things evolve from last year, where you have challenges of identifying the gear to get the gear to, okay, what do I do in front of it? I think now it's almost now people are starting to realize, well, okay, I've got everything. How can I get people's attention? And I think that that's probably that next step, is like how people can refine their message or how they can present it so that they're able to jockey position and get the all so elusive attention of the audience there. So. I mean, it's definitely going to be an interesting time now that it's almost like graduating from knowing that there's live streaming there, and now getting in front of the camera to, like, how do I get their attention? What can I do?
I like that.
And James and Robert, you know very well that you've got to bring that energy, because the camera sucks the life out of you. So you've got to be positive. You've got to be positive on camera. You've got to be alive. You've got to be awake. You might not want to be, depending on what time of day it is wherever you are in the world. But you might not want to be. But you've got to bring your A game, because people aren't going to watch a dull either live stream or a video playback. They want that.
Amen,
they want
brother.
that energy. So you've got to be on top form when you press the button to go live. And some people, that takes a while to get used to. And for me, it's easy because I've been behind the microphone for 30 years. It's not a problem. But for the camera, I was petrified at first to go live in front of the camera. And I kept looking over here and looking over there. I wasn't looking down the lens. I still do it now, but less and less so. Which is, of course, I'm trying to look directly at the lens, But that's really odd because, I want to be looking at you guys, and you're to my right on a different screen. But if I keep looking at you, it looks like I'm looking somewhere else and not interested. So I've got to look down the lens. And for a lot of people, that's one of the key things one of the fears, if you like, to get over. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I mean, for me, it's a matter of like minimize the moments of getting that deer crossed in I got to be careful with my analogies, but it's the idea of like the deer being crossed in the headlights, whatever you call it.
Pretty close.
Okay, close enough. I'll give myself a B-. It's a matter of just knowing as to, if things go wrong, which things will happen with live streaming gear and stuff, that just like, okay, it happens, and just move on. So I think that it's just a matter of just maturing the mindset in terms of how you tackle things is the one thing that leaps out to your question there, Paul. How about you, James?
Yeah. Well, I spend the majority of my day anyway, kind of on stage or in front of cameras, right? As a technology consultant. So this is kind of what I do. And I have the joke with my wife and a lot of my colleagues. I'm on stage doing the jazz hands, right? So I can be very animated about things that I'm passionate about. So when I'm talking enterprise technology, or if I'm talking content creation, things like that, I'll start sitting up a little bit more. And as you see me getting animated, those kinds of things, right? So, but I think it can be taught. I don't think it hasn't to be an innate feature or an innate ability of folks. I think, again, if you're looking to change and pivot, from a entrepreneur term to use, if you're looking at pivoting in terms of what you're doing, those types of reactions can be learned, right? So again, if you're coming from maybe doing podcasts back in the day where it was just audio and you were sitting in your sweats and a hoodie and a hat on all the time and you didn't have to worry about what you look like, that's different. But again, it's branching out and pivoting and doing something different with video, I think, repetition, just like Paul was saying, continuing to do it. The hardest thing literally is press and record. That's the hardest thing for folks to do, to actually start on the venture. Everyone has a story. Everyone has the content to tell and is willing to tell it. We do it. We've done it before, just on regular phone calls or text messages or whatever the case may be. But if you get yourself comfortable at looking at the camera, looking at, like Paul says, looking at the lens, I keep looking down because literally I got one screen open here and I'm looking at Paul's setup off of his Facebook page and I'm trying to figure which one of these new toys do I want to buy as well to put in my environment. So I should focus on what we're doing here. But long story short, that's the idea. Again, just be comfortable with the message, especially if it's something because you already are a subject matter expert in the message. Just bring folks on that complement you. And that's very easy to do, as opposed to having a difficult time going out and try to find folks that don't resonate with what and trying to find kind of topic and subject matters out of your scope. Find folks that resonate with you. Here we are talking live streaming, video streaming, marketing, production, things like that. Yep. We're just having a casual conversation about things that we all like. So there we go.
Yeah.
That's my take.
Got it.
Back to my coffee. And back to looking at Paul's studio. Point.
Oh, well, this is just part of it. So yeah, but you raised a valid point in that. And I found this initially. I was fearful of not being qualified enough to be able to give people my advice, right? So they call it imposter syndrome, and I'd never heard of that until 6 months ago.
Right.
And I was told very clearly by a number of people that were members of the same streaming organization that we belong to, and they said, you've got 35 years in radio. Why are you not qualified to talk about audio? You use it every day. Why do you think you're not qualified enough to talk about it? And it was a wake-up call, because the thing is, I might not be as qualified as the next man. However, my audience hasn't heard it from my perspective, and that's where I'm coming from. So they haven't heard my take on it. They haven't heard my spin on it.
Right.
They haven't seen my setup, for instance, and I might do it completely differently from the guy next door in the next door video that is an expert and has been doing it for 25 years. So, from that point of view, that's an important thing to take away, is that imposter syndrome exists, but try and get over it. That your audience hasn't heard it from your point of view, so you are qualified to tell people about your story, and that's a real powerful thing. And as I say, I learned that 6 months ago, and I've never looked back.
Love that. So in other words, no excuses.
Yeah, pretty much.
I can relate. It's just it's a little bit hard. Well, I think for me, it's just a matter of a little bit surreal when I first heard about imposter syndrome. But I guess it's just the idea of like having that right mindset, and through the repetition that you build that confidence and having that voice as to whether sharing your knowledge or sharing your experience with others. So, or in other words, yep, I agree.
So there's your long answer short. Oh my God! Well,
I
don't know what we're going to do with him. I don't know what we're going to do with him. Maybe we will do some post production and edit out that last 30 seconds of the conversation.
I thought you were going to say like 45 seconds, but either way it goes.
Or last 45 minutes.
It's
no.
fine. Hey, no.
Paul, I want to ask you one question, and again, it's kind of back to your training, your traditional training from radio, right? I guess. What changes have you seen in the industry over the past 3 decades, right? So now that you've branched out and you've become 100% entrepreneur, you're doing your own thing with Love Audio Production. What kind of things have you seen change over the industry in terms of technology that's being used? I know you're saying you're still using the same Marshall microphone, which I think is phenomenal. I love that aspect. But again, just in terms of the delivery of the message.
Yeah, thanks for that question. It's really, really interesting you bring it up. I mean, radio's changed an awful lot, and I'll do it from the analogy of the British market, if I may,
right.
Because I know that the American market is far bigger and maybe going in the same direction. I don't know, but certainly from the UK point of view, radio has changed. When I first joined a radio station back in 1989, that was my first ever radio station. It was called Orchard FM. And it was a small market station in Somerset, which is the next county along. And I was in on the ground level. They hadn't even launched. And I was doing a hospital radio program from a very wet porter cabin on the grounds of the hospital in that town, and did a program every week. And the porter cabin leaked every time it rained. And we had literally that wide, very narrow kind of long room, if you like, with the equipment in it, and the door was literally this thin, so you could hear everything going on in the library where we used to pull out the vinyl and stuff. And it was vinyl back in the days. We didn't have CDs until late 89, early 1990, so CDs weren't even there, right? So we were literally, for my show, particularly at the hospital radio station, I would go in an hour before and I would pick out the vinyl from the library, and we had stacks of it. And we would go around the wards as well prior to doing the show to get requests from people that were listening on these tiny little headsets, like a mono headset plugged into a socket on the wall. That's all they had. And so putting a show together based on their requests and your idea of the show was how I started. So when the station started to set up and I heard about it, they said, okay, well, if you want to work for us, you need to submit a tape. And I said to them, well, everybody else is going to be doing that, right? And they said, yeah, pretty much. And I said, well, I tell you what, here's the thing. Why don't you guys come down to the porter cabin on a Monday night, listen to my show for 30 minutes or so, and then make your mind up.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they did. And so they listened to my hospital radio show, and 2 weeks later, I got a letter saying, you've got the job, welcome aboard. So it was worth it. But back in the day, when they first launched, the mixing desk was an analog desk. It was not digital, of course, back in the day. We had two turntables. The turntables weren't even on fader start, so when you push the fader up, they wouldn't start. You'd have to reach around whilst talking on the mic.
Yeah, you had to turn it, right?
Yeah, press the button to start the thing, right? because we just didn't have the tech set up in the time. And then we had CD players, and there was these really long, big CD players that would automatically queue up the track that you wanted. But, and again, it comes down to the tech not working, right? So you put the CD in, and then instead of putting up a fader on the desk and making it start straight away, you'd have to still talk to the audience, reach round, and press a button on the CD player to make it work, right? So all of that kind of stuff, even from day one, and I was absolutely bricking myself, to be fair, on the first day. I was petrified. I did the first proper, they did all the preamble. We had somebody flying in, people from via helicopter, landing in the grounds of the radio station, in the tennis courts.
Right.
We had, bringing in guests and stuff like that. We had royalty come to open it, which was great. Princess Anne opened the station back in 1990. But on the opening day itself, we had dignitaries from all over the county coming in, doing interviews and stuff like that. The main presenters were hosting it, so they and I was just doing tech in the background and stuff like that. And when it came to 2 p.m. that day, I was on air, and I said, "What kind of show do you want me to do?" He said, "Well, everybody's panicking and everybody's really hyped. You want to do a nice, calm, cool 4-hour show, 2 till 6 in the afternoon on the launch day." Okay. And I was petrified. Absolutely petrified. I'd done it at the hospital radio station. I'd done a show for 2 years there, not a problem. But doing it in front of 45,000 people across a county, right, for the first time ever. And I was absolutely petrified. But I did it. I got over it. My main show was what we call the graveyard shift. So it was 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. But the beauty about that is, back in the day, and this is going back to your original question, James, and I will get there, your original question about how things have changed. Back in the day, I was able to choose the music for my own show. That's how things have changed. Very soon after that, like a couple of years later, everything was automated. So the music was not chosen by the jocks; it was chosen by management, according to the style of music that they want the show to do. Right. So from then, from like 91, 92 onwards, it was all computerized, and we had a printout of the stuff. We'd still get the stuff out of the library, but we'd have it printed out. It wasn't on computer in those days. When I left there in 94, 95, and then worked for a station near Bristol, which is one of the big cities nearby, then that was all automated, and that was on the computer screen, and did breakfast shows and stuff thereafter. And then you move on to the late 90s, early 2000s. Everything's on computer. You just press a button on the screen, on a touch screen, and it would start the jingles.
Playing all your favorite hits. Have a great night, DJ Paul Weber.
That kind of stuff.
Dude, wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. Wait a minute, man. Don't just gloss over that. Hold on a second. Folks, let's get focused here right now. Let's get focused.
Okay.
Do that one more time for me, please.
Okay. This is on the stream deck, by the way. It's not on a touch screen, but yeah.
Gotcha.
Playing all your favorite hits. Have a great night, DJ Paul Weber.
Dude, don't ever lose that.
He's loving that.
I love that. I'm sorry.
Use
Go
that
ahead.
for
That's
because
good.
I'm a mobile DJ, but I haven't mobile DJ'd since February of last year because of the lockdown and stuff. Right, so I DJ for weddings. So that particular jingle was relevant to my DJ work in the evenings.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And that jingle was produced by Jam Creative Productions in Dallas, Texas.
Wowzers!
Write that down too. I'll write that. I know Robert's trying to get me to be quiet because I guess there's here. This is a VMix thing. There's a limitation on us here, so he's trying to cut us off. But I'm writing this down too. The Jam production, the what was
Jam
it? The
Creative
big bottom
Productions,
stuff.
JAM.
Oh
yeah.
Don't let me get a
Stands
Hicks
for
New
John
Media
and
radio.
Mary Lynn.
Yeah, don't let me get a Hicks New
get a Hicks
Media,
New Media,
radio jingle done.
I mean, I'm seeing the gears churning, and the light bulb just went over James' head when he heard that. Like, oh!
I'm looking for my wallet right now. You know, I'm
meant-
looking for the credit card right now.
Well, let me tell you a story about that, James. I was at the studio when that was recorded. They had 7 singers in the studio, and I was behind the mixing console, a 48-channel digital mixing desk, I was in the studio behind the producer when they recorded it. I'd already sent them the lyrics the previous day, and they said, well, why don't you come down and take a look at the studios? At the same time, we will record your jingle. We have a session going on. We're going to record your jingle at the same time. And my God, that was the best moment of my life.
That's so cool.
Very cool.
We need to have you back on the show to talk a little bit more about that, because I love the history piece, right? And there's so much resonance there that we need to dive into, again, talking about where you were, where you are, and then kind of where we're going.
Yeah.
I really love that for folks to understand the history pieces of that. But this was a great show. This was a great conversation. What do you think, Robert?
It's always a
two
pleasure.
thumbs up or 1.5 thumbs up? I give it to you.
There we go. I'm so trying to get used to being in this little box here, but no, I mean, it's always a pleasure to be able to pick Paul's brain and just hear where it's all at, as they say. I don't know if they say it, but yeah, I mean, before we wrap up, like James says, were there any final thoughts, or like how can best people best reach you or find you on the interwebs, as they say?
Yeah, thank you very much. My website is you'll find at, I don't know if you can see that properly or not, but it's it's a bit off the screen, but it's loveaudio.co.uk. You can't quite see that. There you go. That's better.
They'll see it.
So yeah, loveaudio.co.uk is the website. You'll also find my podcast on there, and you'll also find a contact page. You can just drop me a message anytime, day or night, via the website. So yeah, happy to answer any questions that anybody might have. So. I hope that helps. And if they need to know anything, if you guys need to know anything, just drop me a line. I'm happy to answer any questions at any time, like I say. So.
And seeing that this is being pre-recorded, for folks that are watching this, they can always leave a question in the comments, and we'll be sure to pass it on to Paul, so that way he can get back to you with his thoughts or feedback or answers to your question. So.
Awesome. Paul, I just want to say thank you, man. Great conversation. I'm glad we finally got a chance to have you on the show and pick your brain a little bit. I'm looking forward. I was already a subscriber to your channel, but now I'm gonna actually make sure I check out all the other creations that you're putting out there as well. Good stuff.
Well, thank you, James. Thank you, Robert, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Our pleasure. Thanks, Paul. And you just end the recording.